You know that Keeley Companies is all about fostering the world-class culture through their incredible cultural pillars. Well, it was time to add a seventh cultural pillar, Keeley Green. Guided by the mission to raise the sustainability standards by which they design, build, operate, and live, Keeley Green is dedicated to using a holistic approach to leave a positive impact on our environment, create a future that is sustainable for generations to come. In the words of Rusty Keeley, we are just getting started. You can learn more about that just getting started mentality and all the work they do by visiting my friends at Keeley Companies online at keeleycompanies.com.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the #1 national best-selling author of the book On Fire. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, and he's the host of the Live Inspired podcast. John interviews extraordinary individuals on their life story so that you can wake up from accidental living and more fully live your life story. Here's your host, John O'Leary.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. I'm going to begin this episode going back in time just a little bit. We're going to go back about 7 years to when O'Leary left town, woke up in St. Louis early, caught a flight to Raleigh, then one to Miami the following day, and then one the following day to Buffalo. 3 groups, 3 events, 3 cities, awesome times, one major struggle. You ready for it? Before I left town on Monday morning, my cell phone was on the charger. And when I returned home 3.5 days later, my cell phone was still on the charger, which means I had to figure out how to get to the airport that first day. I had to figure out how to get through TSA without a phone. I had to figure out how to get to Raleigh, how to get a car, how to get to the hotel, how to meet up with the meeting planners, how to get back to the airport, down to Miami, meet with those folks, eventually get up to Buffalo, meet with students. Had no idea what dorm they were even in or how to get in touch with them, how to get on campus or anything else. And yet, looking back on a 21-year-long career with 2,700 speeches and a ton of travel, that week without my phone was the best week of work and life of my 21-year-long career. Today, we are going to be bringing on an expert who will share with me not only in some regards why that is the case for John O'Leary, but far more importantly, why it matters to you, how we can be liberated to do what matters most in our life, and how in spite of the struggles we face, including the struggles of distraction, to recognize how firm the foundation is, that God is still God and the best is yet to come. I've got the joy of bringing you someone that I've been looking forward to interviewing now for 13 weeks since I first read the book, since I first listened to the podcast, and I've listened to 10 cents. I feel like I know this guy, and I told him right before we went live, I love this man. You will too. So without further ado, let me bring him in. My friend, now yours, his name, Carlos Whittaker. Carlos, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
I mean, I feel so welcome. I'm already inspired. I'm ready to live inspired. I'm so freaking pumped. Can I just borrow you to introduce me to every single person that I'm going to be introduced to? That was awesome.
Well, just like your PR people wrote that for me. I've never been in Buffalo, Miami, or Raleigh. I just read it word for word like the Whittaker PR agency told me.
Yeah, there you go. No, dude, that's so good. I love it. I love it. And dude, how freaking cool was that you were forced into having the best week of your freaking career without even knowing it was going to be the best week, right? I mean, how cool is that?
It led to intentionality. Apparently in hotels, there's hotel phones still. I don't think those who travel even know it, but I had a phone next to my bed plugged into a wall, and I would call my wife. It took like 16 numbers to punch in before I get to her numbers, but I could talk to her still. Through email, I could figure out the address of organizations I had to speak to. I could tell them ahead of time, hey, weird deal going on. I don't have a cell phone, but I'll be here at this time. And so as I was going through your story, and yours is far more beautiful than mine because you spent more time there than I. But dude, there are lessons to be learned. So let's start here. If I were to meet you at a grocery store and neither one of us has a phone in hand or a kid's hand in ours, we're just kind of cruising the aisles and we bump carts. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm John O'Leary and I do this.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself to me in a supermarket. What do you say?
Oh, in a supermarket. Wow, I love this. I bump into you and then I apologize because I'm really bad with those grocery carts. And then I say, hey, my name's Carlos. You tell me you're John. You tell me, what you do. And I think here's the problem, John, that I've run into the last few years of my life. I don't know what to say to people when they ask me what I do. I don't know what to say, but what I do know that I love to do is I would look you in the grocery store across the cart for me, and I would say, but you know what I do love to do? I don't know how it happens in different ways, but I try to give people freedom in some way, shape, or form in some pain point in their life. And that's really what I try to do every day, whether it be on a stage, through my book, through my phone screen, whatever it is. I know that every single human being has a pain point, a true pain point that is brought about by something true in their life. And I want to just help them get past that or get through that. Or even if they don't get through it, just sit with it in a better way. I love it. I love, and so I think that's my thing. I try to bring freedom to people in some way, shape, or form.
When you hear the number 7 hours, 23 minutes, tell me why you're laughing. Tell me why that matters.
Well, because that is the amount of time I was spending staring at my iPhone 14 Pro Max a day when I got that screen time notification that we all get on Sundays. I don't care if you have an Android phone. I don't care if you have an iPhone. You will get, unless you turn it off. I've just recently found out there's a way to turn it off so you don't feel so bad every week. But I got that notification that came across my phone about 2 years ago, I think, that said I was averaging 7 hours and 23 minutes a day on my freaking phone. 7 hours and 23 minutes a day, which, to be fair, I immediately started justifying. Well, of course I do. I'm like a Instagrammer. It's like what, it pays my bills. It's what I do until, John, I started doing the math. And the math is where, my life began to feel like a deck of house of cards when I realized how much of my life I was truly spending, which that was the math, right? 7 hours, 23 minutes a day equals approximately 49 hours a week. That's 2 entire days a week, right? Then I kept doing the math, over 100 days a year, morning and evening, sleeping and awake, that I was looking at this phone. Like, that's no way to live. And so when you say 7 hours and 23 minutes a day, that's what it immediately rushes my brain back to that moment when I saw that and I said, this is no way to live.
Mm. Where did the idea come then to lower that, not by a minute or two, but dramatically? Because it's one thing to say, because I see that too. Mine's closer to 3.
Sure.
Sometimes the first
Yeah.
number is 4.
Yep.
But I recognize that's too much time.
Yeah.
For you to go from 7.23 to
Yeah.
0.0,
Yeah.
man, that's abrupt. So where did the idea come from for that?
Okay, so there had been I'd known and I'd felt this pain point in my life for a long time. I just felt like, gosh, like this can't be healthy. Like, what's it doing to my brain? What's it doing to my soul? I had all these questions. And honestly, like, I'd done a couple detoxes where I like deleted Instagram or I deleted some things off my phone. And, it felt good for a week or two. And then, the question is that, like, how's that going for you? I mean, you just go right back to it. Right. And so then, John, I started like looking, okay, maybe somebody can actually tell me what it's doing to my brain and to my soul. Like, somebody out there has to have figured this out. So like I start researching. No, I mean, I see a lot of like data from Harvard studies and I see a lot of data, but I couldn't find a person that had like stopped looking at their phone. And the more I researched, the more I realized nobody's done this. Like, nobody has gone from whatever hours a day to 0 for a long period of time. So it's just my personality. I like to make myself a guinea pig and try things out. My obsession in my 30s was I wanted to be Mike Rowe. I wanted to like do the dirty jobs thing. Like, I would just want to go experiment and I want to be this, I want to be that. So I just went to my wife and I said, what do you think it would look like if I spent, initially it was 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And initially it was like, and I moved to a cabin and I didn't look at a screen. And she's like, I mean, that'd be a good idea, but I think it's going to take you longer than 2 weeks to figure it out. So, I enrolled the help of a neuroscientist. So there was a little bit of data involved. And when I went to visit him and told him what I wanted to do, he literally told me, he goes, this is actually going to take about 2 months to see any change in your brain. And so that's when the idea went from a week or two in a cabin to, okay, I've got to do this more intentionally. So I just started thinking, okay, what are some subcultures in America that aren't as reliant on screens as I am? And I really couldn't think of any. Gosh, I mean, I was even thinking like construction workers. I've got some friends that were like in construction, and they're like, "Nah, we're on our phone all day doing this. Like, we rely on the screens for all this." So ended up splitting my time between about 20 Benedictine monks in the high desert of Southern California, and then a small town of maybe 100 Amish in Mount Hope, Ohio. And so I split my time between those two groups and had some pretty transformative moments when I got to live with them. So yeah, so it was about 7.5 weeks. I never looked at a single iPhone, Apple Watch, laptop, TV, nothing, no screens at all. And it was the greatest. This is not exaggeration. You said that was the greatest week of work you've ever had. I can tell people beyond a shadow of a doubt. Just had this conversation with my wife 2 nights ago. We're laying in bed and she's just like, was it really that awesome? And I'm like, I cannot tell you. It was the greatest 7.5 weeks of my entire 51 years on planet Earth. Those 7.5 weeks where I got to, I think, live as we were created to live, in the purest form and fashion I was ever, I in my adult life have ever experienced. I could go back to the 80s when I was riding my big wheel and I was riding my bike through the woods by Rehoboth Elementary School and jumping. Like, it was that. I got to go back to little Afro Carlos with his Gary Coleman Afro on his little bicycle running through the woods. Like, that was the type of joy and human art form that I got to experience. And so, yeah, man, that's what I did. I went 7.5 weeks and I never looked at a screen.
Since I've been married, I have spent a couple days going back to a farm that I worked in high school
Okay.
and supported the guys out there, manual labor, outside all day long, busting tail, man, phones don't work.
Oh
So
yeah.
2 days doing that. Since I've been married, I've spent a couple, maybe 3 or 4 3-day weekends at a silent retreat, like a Jesuit
Yes.
run silent retreat. Powerful. But dude, Sunday at noon, I'm home.
Yep.
What is it like to tell a wife who also is the mother of children that her husband is leaving town and he'll be back in 2 months and he won't have a phone?
Yeah. 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 That's
Because
a great question.
this isn't your job now. Like, this is you
Right.
plural when you make a decision like this. This is
Oh
affecting
yeah.
everybody. So was your wife
Yeah.
supportive of this?
Yes, that's a great question. So, first of all, I will tell you that not only was my wife supportive, but she could envision a version of me coming back that she has been waiting to be married to for a long time. And I think that's why she was like, "Oh my gosh, it's almost like you're going to rehab. Like um this is going to be not only transformative to you, but to me, to the kids, to your relationships, to your friends." And so what it looked like was my wife was actually the one that really helped me land the monastery. So my wife's father was a oblate, which is basically like a almost like, for those that aren't familiar with religion, like it would be like a civilian working with the military. It was almost like a civilian that takes the oaths of monastic living, but they're not monks, right? And so he was one of those up at the abbey, and so all the old monks that were 70 years old plus remembered my wife when she was like 3 and 4 years old running around the monastery. So I had an in there, right? Like I'll never forget my wife picking up the phone and calling Abbot Francis and him being like, "Oh, I remember you, little Heather." And it just was so cool. So like there was some history there. Her father is buried there. There was some history with the Amish. There was no history, bro. Like I literally like went to Amishville, applied in person on these Amish
Bro,
farms.
it pains me, man. Like, I've been reading this, and you mentioned your afro. You don't look like these guys, man. You don't worship
No,
these guys. You don't work like these guys. You don't know these guys, and you jump in with these
no.
guys. It's a
I
crazy story.
Yeah, yeah. And so I got rejected by a good few farmers before I finally found the Millers, who so lovingly invited me onto their sheep farm to turn Carlos into a sheep farming Amish man. And and so, but back to your initial questions. This was the cool part. The cool part was it was 7.5 weeks, but I actually spent 3 of those weeks with my family. So the first 2 weeks I was with the monks, no screens, living that life. The second 2 weeks I was with the Amish, no screens, the whole thing. The last 3 weeks I was with my family with no screens. So they actually got the benefit for my wife. That was really what she was like feasting on, right? Was like at the end, they got 3 weeks of dad never looking at a screen. I think initially my teenagers were like, "Hey, can you chill with the eye contact? Like, can you just like take it down a level with like the intentionality that you're existing in right now? We need a little bit of old dad back." But by the end of it, all three of my kids and my wife were all in tears when I had to get on the plane to fly back to California to get my brain rescanned and to get my phone back. They're like, "We're gonna miss you. We're gonna miss this version of dad." And that stuck with me. Those are haunting words to hear from your kids. And so, yeah, they were all in, and they definitely appreciated the transformation that happened in my life. But then I think some of that, definitely spilled over onto them.
Occasionally, when we host retreats, whether it's for leaders, all I'm doing and saying this, by the way, is ensuring no one who listens to my podcast will ever attend. But here we go. We'll sometimes take cell phones
Yeah,
because what we know is they're incredibly distracting from doing the work in front of you, whatever that
yeah,
work might be.
absolutely.
You lose your cell phone. You go up to the high mountains of California. Father Patrick, I think, guides you up to
Yeah.
Mount Carmel. What
Yes.
is it like for this man who spends 7 hours, 23 minutes a day on his phone, tethered to the world,
Yeah.
to leave the world behind, have a simple bag, and an ordinary monk guiding
Oh
him
my
up the
gosh.
hill toward his one-room cottage?
I arrive at the Abbey and my best friend Brian drops me off, and literally it felt like I was being dropped off at a bus station in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, like with no quarters in my pocket, no payphones around. And he left and he takes my phone and everything. And then Father Patrick shows up and walks me up the hill to where I'm going to be living, which is just a one room, literally a one room cabin at the top of the hill overlooking the monastery. Kind of tells me you can tell he's given this spill before, right? You can tell like he's kind of like, okay, so morning vespers are at 5:30, then we've got 7 a.m. prayer, and then breakfast at 8:30, and he gives me the whole thing, takes me up there, leaves, and I'm just sitting there. My bag's on the ground, and I'm looking around thinking, okay, for the next 7 weeks, it's going to be me and my brain. This this is horrible. And my brain starts going right away. My brain just I can't stop it. I can't pull out TikTok or Instagram to stop my mind from going where it's going to go. My brain was going to go where it was going to go because I was in complete solitude for the first time, honestly, in my adult life. True solitude with nowhere to go. And so I'll tell you this, the first few days were some of the most torturous days of my existence. Honestly, and that sounds so intense, but I'm telling you, like I was having physical manifestations of anxiety. I was having heart palpitations. I woke up at 2 a.m. I felt like I had the flu, like night sweats, like my body, dopamine levels, serotonin levels, everything was readjusting from 7 hours and 23 minutes a day to nothing. And, hindsight 2020, coming back and talking to a neuroscientist friend of mine, he's like, no, you were literally your body was coming off of a drug. And it did. And it took about 3 days of misery, of me wanting to quit, you read the book. Like I called my wife, I think I made it like half a day. And I was like, all right, I can write a book on half a day without my phone. Like I'm ready to go back. And she's like, nope, you're going all in. And after, I guess it was morning 4, maybe, I woke up and it for the first time felt like an elephant had stepped off my chest. And I was like, oh, this is what living actually and breathing actually feels like. This is the pace that maybe we were created to move at. And at that moment, that was the first moment I went all in. For 3 days, it was a fight. For 3 days, it was all about the phone. For 3 days, it was all about my screen. It was all about everything I was missing. Day 4, from day 4 to whatever day 7.5 weeks is, I don't know because I'm not good at math, but whatever day that is, from day 4, John, it was never about my phone. I'd forgotten I even had a phone. It was all an experiment about interaction, savoring, community, the table, all of these beautiful things. And I was like, I thought this was an experiment about a screen. Wait a second. This actually has nothing to do with my screen and everything to do about relearning this lost art of living with others and humaning. And so, yeah, man, it took a few days, but after those few days was when the journey really began.
You were journaling voraciously. Every bird you saw, every sunrise you saw, every challenge you faced goes down through your
Yeah.
hand and that pen into a piece of paper, the journal, and then you've stopped.
Yeah.
Why'd you stop journaling? Something that felt so important when you began the journey.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you the blatant answers. When I went from the monks to the Amish, I went from 23 hours a day of solitude and silence and being able to journal to what felt like 23 hours a day of lifting hay and like shearing sheep. And it was like moving from a cave to downtown Manhattan. Like I was shocked as to how much effort and energy it took to really live in community as intentionally as the Amish lived. And so, I really just ran out of time to journal. Like, I'm just telling you, my full-time job at the monastery was to walk at 3 miles an hour, to sit with the ducks by the pond, to pull out my journal and to write these notes of what God is teaching me and all the ways I'm going to transform. Then when I went to the Amish, bro, I was so tired that first day. When I got done watching a farmer farm for a day, I was so exhausted. I didn't even have like enough strength to pick up a pen in my journal. And so really it was just the absolute juxtaposition between these two subcultures and these two communities that are living very differently from the way I live. And both of them are way less reliant on screens than I am. But the intensity of both was completely different, night and day.
Before you got to the farm, before you learn how to shear a sheep, something I hope I don't learn during this podcast, but if I do, so help it, I'll write it down. You have a meeting with Father Francis, and you're just going back and forth on some of the faith struggles and human struggles you're dealing with right now. And
Yeah.
I believe he shared with you a quote from Saint Irenaeus. And I'm going to share the quote.
Yeah.
And then you tell me, like, it seems like it mattered maybe when it was written years and years and centuries ago, but why does it matter still? So here we go.
Okay.
Quote is, the glory of God is a man fully alive, and the life of the human consists in beholding God.
Yes. Yes. Fully alive. So there's two parts of that for me, that were very transformative for me, and I think speak volumes to where we are as a humanity today. To be fully alive. Again, I go back to that little 7 hours and 23 minutes a day notification, and I think, am I actually alive? Am I actually living as my thumb is swiping up on this 6 inches of LCD in front of me? Am I truly living? Is that truly being fully alive? So there's the fully alive piece, right? But then there's that word behold at the end. And if there's one thing that I know these screens do not help us do, it's behold, right? I don't have to tell anybody that's listening to this podcast that if you see a photo of a sunset on your Instagram feed, and then you walk out in your front yard and experience a sunset, one will take your breath away and one will not. There is true living in beholding. And behold is, it's such a funky word, right? That we don't really use anymore. I mean, I don't know the last time in a conversation you're like, behold, but what I immediately think of the Charlie Brown Christmas special when Linus walks out and reads the Christmas story, and he's like, behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy that shall be to all people. These are angels talking about like beholding the grandness and the glory.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that he told me to do in that moment is I'm having this crisis of faith, right? Like I no longer have like my phone, so I can listen to a podcast that can make me feel better about all these questions I have. He's like, no, just go climb the mountain. There's a mountain behind your cabin. Go to the top of it. There's a storm rolling in. I want you to go to the top and I want you to behold. I want you to behold. And John, if that wasn't one of the most profound moments of my life, I don't think I got it till I got to the top of the mountain. Yeah. And then I did see this storm coming in and I felt as small can get. And in that moment, I started thinking like honestly, like behold, like I don't have to just climb a mountain and behold a storm rolling in. I can behold all sorts of incredible things. I can behold my relationship with my kids. I can behold a blade of grass if you pick it up and tear it apart and look at the inside and think, how in the world can somebody look at a blade of grass, rip it in half, and not think there's something greater for them? And so, yes, beholding is important. We have a hard time beholding because of these screens. And then I also believe that being fully alive, man, fully alive, just think to yourself, are you actually living at the potential you have been created to live? If you're staring at a screen for as long as you're staring at a screen, I think the answer for everyone's going to be no.
You read a lot during this section as you're partying with the monks about control. And I'm gonna quote you back something you wrote. So if you don't like this quote, you've got no one to blame but yourself. But here we go. We are tiny specks on a planet that rotates at a speed of about 1,000 miles per hour, while simultaneously orbiting the sun at a speed of about 67,000 miles per hour. How could we think we are somehow in total control of our lives?
Yeah.
I mean, so because man, you're writing about this as you're also sharing that you try to learn about the Big Bang while you're out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
realized about 11 pages in, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Tell me what
Yeah.
you mean by that and tell me a little bit more about control.
Well, yeah, I mean, these screens, people tell me, I used to say it, I'm addicted to my phone. I'm addicted to my phone. And I quickly realized when I was at the monastery, I'm not addicted to my phone. The phone is just it's just a piece of glass and some chips. I'm addicted to the control, the false belief that am in control and that the screen gives me. So suddenly I'm no longer in control. I have no way to track my kids. I don't know on Life 360 if they're going 45 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour. I don't know where they're at. I don't know anything. I don't know the news. I had a spot show up, like a little mole show up on my neck, like day 2 of being. This wasn't in my book, actually. I don't know if I've told very many people this. I had a mole show up on my neck the second day of being with no phone. Do you know the control I wanted to have, like to WebMD and tell myself that this isn't going to kill me in the next 7 weeks, right? Like so much false control that we feel like we have because of these screens. And there was a big wrestle with me and control, and the fact that I actually started feeling out of control. I feel like once I came to terms with, yeah, sure, there's certain things that there are certain things I can control day to day, but really the truth of it is, once I'm comfortable enough to say there's not a whole lot in my life that I can control. There are some things I can, but most of it I can't. It was pretty freeing for me to find that space. And and speaking of like the Big Bang, right? So like I had this moment where there's this used bookstore at the monastery, and it's funny what you find in like a monastery used bookstore. They're obvious.
I was just thinking that, dude. What a crazy bookstore.
Yeah. There's not a monk that's like looking at the titles before they put them in there. Like it's all kinds of stuff in there. And so like, I'm having kind of, it's pretty big crisis of faith while I'm there. Like everything starts sounding like a fairy tale. And I'm like, what's the meaning of life? Right. Like I'm like crying with the monks. And I find this book that is basically, it's about the Big Bang. And I'm like, well, is this the way that the universe was created? And I just started reading about, and I was thinking, okay, this is going to be the end of my faith. I'm going to read this book. And at the end of it, I'm going to be like, well, that's it. Like I came to a monastery and lost my faith. This is awesome. Great book, Carlos. This is awesome. People are going to be really inspired. And bro, you're right. I got about 9 pages into it as it started unpacking what literally sounded like the most preposterous idea as to how it was like, so I don't know, 1 billion years ago, there was like 2 tablespoons of this neuron that happened to bump into this. And I start thinking, actually, this sounds crazier than what I believe about my faith. Like I actually can believe, all kinds of things about my faith that I could never come to terms of believing. Now, I know there's a lot of people that follow me and maybe listen to you that believe in the Big Bang, whatever it may be. But what it did for me was it got me to a place of surrendering my need to know. We have become addicted to knowledge. We've become addicted to the feeling of control that knowledge gives us. And I just was living in this sweet, sweet season where I had no opportunity to know. I literally had to wonder about everything. Wondering is gone. Wondering is extinct. But I suddenly spent 7 weeks wondering. And so, yeah, man, I think the control piece for me was huge. And that may be the thing that even today, 2 years after I did this experiment, is still the most freeing thing out of everything that I learned. Is that I stopped fooling myself into thinking I was in control, and it just for me was a way freer way to live.
A couple years ago, was supposed to fly into some little Idaho airport. It closed down right before I boarded the flight, which means I had to fly, I think, into Seattle, then drive by myself for 3 hours, got into the hotel in the middle of
Yeah,
nowhere at about 3 in the morning. And that's 5 in the morning St. Louis time.
yeah,
So to get through this mountain pass, I'm pounding coffee. By the time I check in, I'm jittery and I'm awake. So I go on a walk in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, through this mountain range in Idaho.
yeah.
And for the first time in 20 years, I see a shooting star. And dude, it blew my mind. I'm like, that's
Yes.
awesome. And then a minute later, I saw another one, and I'm like, God is talking to
Yeah.
me. It was this surreal moment of being in nature, being alert, being
Yeah.
plugged into what matters, letting go of what
Yeah.
doesn't, and finally, here's my point: savoring.
Yes.
So you learned so much, I think, from your couple of weeks with the monks. But one of the things you learned was about savoring. Tell me what the word
Yeah.
savor means.
To savor is to literally sit and to stop and to enjoy the actual experience of what you're tasting, feeling, seeing, knowing, doing. We don't savor anymore, right? Like savoring, again, it's one of the lost arts of being human that I talk about in my book, one of the chapters. And I liken it to this, um, like if you okay, whatever it could be, whatever that your listener like really enjoys. For me, I love coffee. Like I'm a big coffee guy. And for the longest time, like, I mean, when I moved to Nashville, everyone's so snobby about their coffee in Nashville. And it's like, pour over this and that. And so I started getting real snobby about my coffee. But then I started getting busy and my business started getting bigger. And I found myself like just drinking whatever coffee I could find. Now, the reason why I didn't care was because I literally started drinking my coffee. I never had a cup of coffee without scrolling my email or checking my whatever it is on my phone. So I was always drinking coffee while I was doing something else. Well, suddenly I go to the monastery and I packed I did some Dunkin' Donuts breakfast blend. Okay, this is where I've gone in my coffee voyage. And that first morning that I made that cup of coffee, and I could smell it dripping in the old 1985 Mr. Coffee Maker. And I poured it into the little, my little mug. I actually took a Waffle House mug with me from home because I love a good Waffle House mug. They're big, and and I sat on that front porch and I just had my coffee. Can I tell you all of the flavors that we don't even know exist in a Dunkin' Donuts breakfast blend? I was able to taste, to smell, to savor it in a way I never had experienced my coffee for years prior. Why is it that the first cup of coffee on vacation tastes so much better than the cup of coffee that you're taking on the way to work and your to go, whatever? And so one of the things I've done to learn to savor, especially my coffee, it's something I've decided to do, is I never, ever, ever in 2 years, I've not taken my coffee to go from any location. I only, if they have a ceramic mug, if I'm, and just so people know, even Starbucks still carries ceramic mugs if you want to drink your coffee out of one. I always ask for a ceramic mug and I always drink my coffee there because if you don't have, your coffee is going to be cold in about 4 minutes. So if you don't have 4 minutes to stop and savor, then you're just moving too fast. But the problem again is that people have lost their ability. We get used to something good, right? You get used to something and then you stop savoring it. So sometimes you have to leave. So I use the example of walking into a bakery and it smells amazing. The bread is there. It's like, oh, this is so good. And you sit down and you order your croissant and it smells great. Well, about 5 minutes after your conversation started with whoever you're with, you realize someone else walks in and goes, oh my gosh, it smells amazing in here. And then you go, oh my gosh, I don't smell it anymore. So what do you have to do in order to smell it? You have to get up, you have to walk out, you have to walk back in, and then you've got it again. So it actually takes intentionality. It actually takes practicing savoring and doing it on purpose in order to not get used to some of the amazing things that we've been blessed with.
Mm. Right now, you're savoring coffee, and I appreciate that as a man who's got a coffee directly in front of him, and one who begins his days most days with a cup of coffee. As lovely and as important as it is to savor your coffee in the morning through the Waffle
Yeah.
House container,
Yeah.
how did it change the way you savored your wife?
Yeah. It changed it dramatically because, when it comes to my wife specifically, like I said, walk out of a bakery, walk back in. When I wasn't with my wife or my family for 4 weeks and I came back with no screen, I was noticing, John, things about her that probably I'd seen every day for the last 24 years that I'd never truly noticed. I would like the fact that she really is an incredible cook. And I'll just like, she'll cook me a meal and I'll be like, man, this is good, babe. Thanks or whatever. No, now I'm savoring every bite. And I'm almost begging her, like, I need you to know how much I appreciate this because I really don't want this to ever end, Like it allowed me to be more intentional in savoring my time with her, to be more intentional in not even with her, but with my kids. Like no man is promised tomorrow, right? I just lost my father, um, and my dad. I was blessed with 14 months of him living across the street from me. I bought the house across the street from me for 14 months, and can I tell you, because this all happened after this experiment, I savored every moment I was with. I'd walk in, I'd smell his bald head, I'd kiss him on his bald head, and 14 months was 14 months too short.
Mm.
And he's gone now. And guess what? I'll not be able to savor that anymore. So that's why it's so important that we not only savor our coffee, but we savor these relationships because no one's promised tomorrow. And I just think that it can absolutely change your life.
So, my friend, we're going to speed date for a minute. I want you to give me one sentence on what the Amish taught you about, and then I'll fill in the blank.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
What did the Amish teach you about meals?
The Amish taught me that I don't think I'd actually had a true meal in a long time. I've been eating, I've been eating food, but a meal is actually about community and a meal is actually about connection. And I quickly learned when I came back because they ate for so freaking long. Like their meals were like 70 minutes, 2 hours. I'm like, why is it taking us so long to eat? Well, the average American meal 100 years ago, I think was 70 minutes long. And the average American meal in 2023 was 12 minutes long. And so suddenly they're no longer meals. We're not communing together. And so one of the things that the Amish taught me about meals is that it's actually connection. That the food is just the tool to connect. And so my meals have gotten a lot longer since then.
Last weekend, I went to a gorgeous cathedral for church. A couple of weeks ago, I went to an awesome, like, dynamic New Age church. Big
Yeah.
old screens, a rocking band, everything, man. What did the Amish teach you about church?
Oh wow.
One sentence.
First, oh geez. The Amish taught me that a church is not about a building. A church is about a home.
Mm, so good. What did the
Yeah.
Amish teach you about getting lost?
The Amish taught me that we have been created with the capacity as humans to get lost and find our way. And we have slowly but surely muted that ability to get lost and find our way.
What did the Amish teach you about community?
The Amish taught me that community is more important than optimization.
Whew. Finally, what did the Amish teach you about work?
The Amish taught me that I am a lazy man and that I need to work with my hands and develop calluses. Even if it's just a hobby, I gotta get back my hands in the dirt.
You mentioned you got a brain scan before this all began. We didn't talk a lot about it. I don't think we need to, but we do need to talk about the brain scan you got 8 weeks later.
Yeah.
What happens when you went back 2 months after that original brain scan?
2 months after, and again, everyone remember this is not a scientific study. I was the only lab rat. But what I did, whether it be not looking at screens, praying 6 times a day with monks, working, shearing sheep all day long with Amish, my cerebellum healed about 5 years in those 7 weeks. I've got the brain scans to show it. And then my cognitive memory test and my memory score I went from the 50th percentile in memory of adult men in America to the 99th percentile in memory of men in America when I did not look at my screen for 7 weeks.
What are some practical things that not even no I statement here, just give it to us.
Yeah.
What are some practical things we can take away from this 7.5 week experiment? How do we live this out in our lives? Because we probably won't join an Amish community.
Yeah.
We probably won't go up to the high desert in California and get lost for a couple of weeks and see the storms roll in.
Yeah.
So what practically can my sister listens to this, raising 6 kids. Her life is
Yeah.
busy. My mom
Yeah.
and dad have a million things going on. They listen to this podcast. We've got
Yeah.
folks in 50 states, 130 nations who are trying to do life.
Yeah.
Listening to this conversation, they're grateful you've done your part of it. But if they're being honest with themselves and us, they're thinking, then what does it mean for me? So,
Yeah.
Carlos, how do we
Yeah.
live this?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say is every single person living this can do one small thing for one small bit of improvement in their life, right? Like, what's the name of your podcast again? Give it to me.
Live inspired with John
Live
O'Leary.
inspired. Live inspired. So if people believe that they can get 1% more inspired every time they listen to something that you have to say, I want to let everybody know that there is an improvement right away that can add life to add living to their lives. And so I want them to know that first of all, like every single person, I don't care if you're, I don't care what you are. I'm talking 3 weeks ago, I spoke to a room full of nurses that literally are attached to their phones 24 hours a day. And I was like, but you can do something. So let me get practical, really practical with people. If you can, okay, if you can reduce your screen time by even 1 hour or 2 hours a day, that's it. I'm not asking you to give up your phone. You'll literally gain back almost a month of living a year. Okay. So 2 hours a day, a month of living a year, you can actually get back. What are some ways you can do that? Well, the average American spends 30 minutes before they go to bed and about 30 minutes when they wake up looking at their phone. So, one thing that automatically gave me an hour back of screen time a day was I bought this really crazy thing called an alarm clock. It's the craziest thing. You can order one on Amazon right now, and it's next to my bed. And all that thing does is it wakes me up in the morning. I don't pick it up and start rubbing its face and it doesn't tell me. It just wakes me up. And so what did that do? That gave me a whole hour, right? So something for me that I realized when I looked at my screen time was I was spending a lot of time on X getting my news, right? And so like I love news. I love to be informed. So I did a really crazy thing and I subscribed to this thing that they throw in my front yard every day called a newspaper. And I get my news from the newspaper now. I read it. I don't no longer get it off my phone. And so that probably saved me another hour a day. So there are things that you can do, every single person listening to this right now, that you can do to literally add years of living back to your life. And that's the whole goal. The goal isn't to look at your screen less. That's not the goal. The goal is to live more. Get lost. Stop putting directions in your phone. Get lost. Ask someone at a gas station the directions when you get lost, and maybe you'll make a friend, right? There's all sorts of things that I think we're missing out on.
Dude, one time when I was in college, our St. Louis Cardinals bullpen closer retired. His name was
Oh,
Tom Hankey. Tom Hankey was an older guy when we got him. He was old when he finished his career, but he retired with like 42 saves. We needed him
wow.
the following year. So two of my buddies and I got into his Toyota Corolla and drove down to Southern Illinois, this town. I will not name it because we don't want people visiting Tom Hankey right now.
Yeah.
But we went to a gas station in this small town and we said, "Do you know where Tom Hankey lives?" The dude
No way.
did. He gave us directions. We go to the house. We knock on the door. We try to recruit Tom to come back
No.
to those Cardinals. So it was a time in life, all this to say, when
Yeah.
we were alive.
Yes.
And I, and I think I
Yeah.
speak for we, have lost a bit of that as we know
Yeah.
exactly the address now and
Yeah.
exactly the fact that Tom will never come back to play baseball.
Yeah.
Get,
Totally.
get lost in life again. So I'm gonna leave
Yes.
us with this quote as we get ready to move into the Live Inspired 7. The quote is from you. It's a great one. How much louder was God's voice when the volume of life was turned down low enough to hear God? I'm
Mm,
going to say that again to give you a moment to tell us what this means. How much louder was God's voice when the volume of life was turned down low enough to hear God?
yeah. I remember specifically before I got to the monastery, I was having about a 2 year period where I couldn't hear the voice of God. And I was like, well, I guess he's gone. I guess he's muted. He's decided to turn his mouth somewhere else and stop speaking to me. And then when I got to the monastery and I realized not only is he speaking, but it is booming. His voice is booming. I realized that the volume of podcasts and pundits and politicians and all of the things were actually just drowning out his voice. And so for me, when I lowered the volume of life, the volume of God went up. Um, and I've made sure that the volume of life has stayed low so that I do have this voice to follow.
Gosh, man, I hope right now, as you, my friends, have Fox on in the background, you turn it off. And for the other half who are listening, laughing at those who watch Fox, okay, now it's your turn. For
Now
those
it's your
watching
turn.
MSNBC in the background right now, turn it off as well. They are doing a
Yeah.
phenomenal job reminding you how lousy your world is.
Yep. Yep.
Turn it off. Eventually leave this podcast, but not until Carlos gets the final word. And hear how loud the volume of God's
Yeah.
voice is again in your life.
Yeah.
It is good. The
Yeah.
foundation firm, the best is yet to come. So, Carlos, the book is called Reconnected. Can't encourage folks to check it out and then live it loud
Yeah.
enough. If they want to learn more about your work and your life, where can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, CarlosWhitaker.com is my website. You know, it's funny. I would say go to Instagram and follow me. But I've actually, even the last 3 weeks, I haven't really been on there. And I'm actually having this existential crisis after my father passed away. I'm like, what's important? Like, where are the places I'm going to show up? If there's one thing that is true, I am going to keep continuing to create things that help people find freedom. And probably the place to find that is going to be at carloswhitaker.com. If I end up on Instagram again, I'll be there. If not, you'll find me somewhere.
Carlos, 7 questions that tether our guests together. They're called the Live Inspired Seven. Question number one: what's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
Oh, I would probably say The Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's deep.
Yeah.
What's what's one positive characteristic, one trait that you possessed as a little boy, jumping through the lake beds and creeks with your afro that you wish you
Yes.
possessed as brilliantly today? So something you
Yeah.
were that you're not as
Oh,
much today as what?
I think I was softer. That's going to be the word I use to describe it. There just wasn't as much angst inside of me, and there was just a little bit of softness that I think I've lost.
If
Yeah.
your home caught fire and Heather, the kids, the animals, the cell phones, everything's out safely, man. But you have an
Yeah.
opportunity of running in and grabbing one physical thing.
One,
What's that one thing you would grab from the burning house?
I would probably there. It's one binder. This is going to sound so lame. I know I should probably grab something else, but it's one binder that has all my Father's Day cards from my kids from when they were little, all the way to now. And I literally, I still look at that thing. It's next to my bed. I'd grab that.
Dude, when you said the binder, I'm like, he's got his insurance cards. Like, this guy is so lame. I didn't think he was an accountant, but let me tell you this. There's nothing lame about that
Yeah,
binder.
yeah,
I'm glad
yeah,
you've got that as you
yep,
page through it and watch it burn. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
If you could
absolutely.
sit on a bench on a gorgeous Nashville day and have a long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who would you like to have a long conversation with?
Um, I would like. I think I'd like to have a long conversation with Moses. There's just something about that man's life, right? That I'm like, really, like you that like really like a rod into the ocean split wide open. Like, what did that actually look like? Did it smell? Were there fish? Like, like I think that's who I'd want to hang out with.
What's the best advice Moses or your dad or your wife or some Amish leader or
Yeah.
pastor at a monk, one of the monks ever gave you? So the best advice you've ever
Yeah.
received is,
Is stop cleaning the cobwebs of life and kill the spider.
what
Yeah.
would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Um, she's not worth it.
Carlos Whittaker, author, cobweb cleaner, spider killer, parent,
Yeah.
friend, and incredible son. It has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like your one sentence to read?
Ooh, John, Lord have mercy. Bro, you asked the best questions. Um, my one sentence would be he reflected Christ's glory every opportunity he had.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Carlos reflected Christ's glory in every opportunity he had because he recognized the importance of slowing down to recognize why he
Yeah.
raced in the first place.
Yeah.
And my friends, I think in reading Reconnected and in checking out his work in his life, you'll see the same possibility in yours.
Yeah.
Carlos, I want to thank you for being part of our Live Inspired podcast family at this point. I want to leave everybody with a next right step in their journey. If they're wondering, what do I do next? One might be to slow down long enough to recognize why you race. One
Yeah.
might be to check out the book Reconnected. You will get profound value from it. And if you want to listen to another podcast that celebrates similar next right steps, check out my episode with Jenna Kutcher. We recorded this probably 3 years ago. It's episode 488, the Live Inspired podcast. One of her quotes is, "Time is currency. Time is a non-renewable resource that we can covet and spend so carefully. Now, every dream will cost you something, but remember, you are worth the risk. You are your time, and you are that investment. Choose wisely." My friends, I thank you for choosing wisely by partying with Carlos and I right now. And I want to thank you again, Carlos, for joining us on this journey.
Thanks for having me, John.
My friends, that is the voice of the great Carlos Whittaker. He is not only cleaning out spider webs, he's killing spiders and he's taking us along for the ride. My name is John O'Leary, and today is our day. What a gift it is. Slow down and live inspired. Keeley Companies was started almost 50 years ago by the one and only Larry Keeley. What started as a small family-owned paving company in St. Louis has grown to a nationally known full-service construction, development, and restoration partner. Larry the Legend, as he is affectionately known, has been a part of this growth every step of the way and continues to provide guidance as his son Rusty, my buddy, drives their vision and achieves results on purpose. His unwavering foundation of a family culture with a focus on people has gotten Keeley Companies to where they are today, and their journey is truly just beginning. To learn more about Larry the Legend and Keeley Companies, check them out at KeeleyCompanies.com.